is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Missouri basketball drops a pair of games, and we are here to talk about them on this week's edition of Mizzou That's Who here on KC Sports Network, your source, your home for Missouri athletics here on KC Sports Network. Gabe, maybe talk about the games might be a little loose for what we're going to do on this podcast. How are you doing?
Good. Let's talk about it real quick. Whatever we said about the previous 3 or 4 games, say that about the 2 that we played this week. Every game is the same. They kind of hang around. They're competitive. They don't win, though. And then, the game's over, and then they do that one again, like 3 days later.
We're in Groundhog.
I'm good, though.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Maggie, how are you doing? Different locale for the people watching on YouTube. There's been some ice going on in Kansas City as well, and Columbia and St. Louis, all across the state of Missouri, having some pretty severe winter weather. How are things across the state?
Yeah, I'm over in Columbia, Illinois right now. So you just kind of never know. I feel like I'm going to have I might have a different podcast background all the time. So you just kind of never know where I'm going to be. But
you should get the virtual one, and it looks like you're on the beach.
Yeah, the beach or the Eiffel Tower, the Great Wall of China. You just kind of never know. But, I am always watching Mizzou basketball. So, but like Gabe said, it's just the same story every time. Now, on Saturday, though, it kind of sucked because it was right in the middle of the divisional game. So I was back and forth, clicking back and forth. I was like, dang it, I have to watch this game. I have to watch this, I guess, by the end of it, beat down. But
I do always say this. I think I said this on last week's podcast. The schedule makers, whoever make it, they seem to schedule Missouri basketball games at the worst possible times. Because even when they're in their non-con schedule, like the Seton Hall game, I think was right after a Chiefs game was done in Kansas City. I don't think that was originally supposed to be there. I think the Chiefs were supposed to be...
Chiefs were supposed to be Monday night.
That's right. But there were some things that just didn't just work out very well.
It also doesn't help that the NFL now plays 6 days a week.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to play on Wednesday at noon, But my issue is this team has a lot of night games, man. 7 o'clock Saturday night against Florida, 8 o'clock tomorrow night against Texas A&M. The Arkansas game's at 7. Let's go 12:30. That seems like a better time. 9 a.m. maybe. We could do that. I think once you get below a certain record, you should not be allowed to play after sundown. If you're under 500 overall, you cannot play after sunset. Is that fair?
I texted somebody yesterday, and this is before we get into the basketball conversation. And by the end of the Chiefs game, it was 8:30, and I was like, "Man, this is awesome." I was like, "Game started at 5:30, game is over by 8:30." I was like, "Oh my!" And I worked from home today, obviously, because the ice was so bad. But I was like, "I'm gonna get to bed at a great time." I don't know. It was just amazing. I loved it.
5:30 was a weird kickoff time. When they announced the 5:30 kickoff, I was like, I can't remember the last time the NFL did a 5:30 kickoff. Because
they always do that though on the last 2 weekends of the playoffs. It's always 2 and 5:30 for the conference championship.
But it was so great. I loved it.
No, it was good.
The elder in me, I'm loving it.
That 7:15 kickoff though, some of those Sunday night football games where I'd have to wait around all day. And then we do the postgame show, obviously, for the Chiefs. So then we're not starting the postgame show, which usually goes, depending on the game, at least an hour after the show. And then you got to pack everything up. So I'm there 2 hours before the game starts to get everything set up so I don't have to do anything during the game so I can watch the game. And then I'm there 2.5 hours after the game. So then you're looking at 1 a.m. before I get out of there. And it was nice to get home before midnight last night.
This should just be the podcast where we bitch about the problems of covering sports.
Well, look, we're about to bitch about basketball, so I mean...
I've found out over 20 years, people are very receptive to that. When I would say, at 2:30 in the morning, I was leaving the HomeField press box. Everybody was very sympathetic, felt very bad for me. I've noticed all along the way.
And you're hitting 3 different age levels with us, too. I mean, we're not that far apart in age, but you're hitting 3 different age demographics. So we all like in different things, but we all love the 5:30 starts.
5:30 kickoff. If the NFL learned anything, they need to kick games off at 5:30. That's what they learned. But Gabe, I think you do make a really good point about playing at night. Maybe that's Mizzou basketball's problem. Maybe they just maybe the games are too late.
It's too dark. They can't see the basket.
It's too late. Maybe they need it to start a little bit earlier because they're up too late.
Yeah. Like, look, Nick Honor, Sean East, Noah Carter, these guys are, I mean, they're 35, 36 years old. They might be getting beat by the time the games are over. No, I mean, they've been around a while. But no, I don't know what the issue is. I mean, there's a lot of, and the thing is, I'm getting the hyperbole of this is Kim Anderson bad, and it is not. Just look up KenPom rankings, look up net rankings. It's not. I mean, the record is bad, and everybody's convinced they're not going to win another game. I would be willing to bet a good amount of money they will win another game. They will, because they've been, and again, this goes back to good teams win, bad teams talk about how they almost won. So I'm not trying to convince anybody they are anything but a bad team, because they are. But the Jackson State thing, South Carolina, you don't trail all second half, you lose in overtime. Georgia, you're in a 2-point game with 4 minutes left and basically don't score. You're talking about basically 3 plays. And if you change 3 plays out of however many plays are in a basketball season, then you're talking about a team that's 11-7, and it's not great. Nobody's excited about it, but we're not having conversations. You're not getting the overreaction of people that say, well, I was wrong. Dennis Gates has no idea what he's doing. These players are all terrible. And we're going back to the dark ages of Kim Anderson and all that. So, it's not fun, but it's maybe not quite as bad. I mean, we seem to be getting close to maybe having some fights in games, and I'm a fan of that. I was actually disappointed. I watched the entire Alabama game and didn't get to see a fight in.
Which maybe we should talk about that a little bit, because it happened. I mean, because our podcast was on Monday and the Alabama game was on Tuesday, and I think it's an interesting topic. So obviously for those that are listening, you're probably basketball fans. So because why else would you be listening to this podcast at this point if you're not? Nate Oates, there was a foul on an Alabama player. I don't even know who it was, and it doesn't even really matter. It was a foul on an Alabama fan against Anthony Robinson, I think. And Nate Oates shoved Aiden Shaw. For some reason, for Alabama fans were saying like he was in the huddle. He wasn't in the huddle. He was in the area. He was close. He was close to Alabama's bench, but there was no huddle. It was in the middle of the It was in the middle of the game. It was right after a foul. And Aiden Shaw kind of stepped over towards the bench because there was some jawing or whatever you want to call it going on. Aiden Shaw stepped in there as any player, because it was Anthony Robinson was standing there by himself, and he's the older brother kind of type, whatever. And Nate Oates stepped in there pretty quickly and pushed Aiden Shaw. What's everybody's opinion on it? I mean, I don't think you ever touch anybody's player ever.
If an Alabama player had done that, I would actually have no issue with it at all. Because it was by the Alabama bench. I mean, he wasn't like invading the huddle, but he was over there and he was jawing. And if an Alabama player wants to step up and say, hey, get out of here, no issue. No problem at all. The coach can't do that. And I thought what was worse than the tap, push, shove, call it whatever you want, was he kind of went after him afterwards. He was clearly talking and pointing. Yeah. And I mean, as I wrote this morning, that is not the worst way in which Nate Oates has handled an issue in the last 12 months. So he doesn't really get the benefit of the doubt for me from being a mature guy that does everything the right way. I thought a friend of mine brought up a good point. He said, because there were 2 refs right there. He said, yeah, maybe the refs were so stunned that Nate Oates did that they just kind of froze and didn't. But how you don't call anything on that, I mean, is like, what if Aiden Shaw does that to Nate Oates?
Right.
That's a technical, right?
It's an ejection. I bet Aiden Shaw gets ejected. I guarantee he gets ejected. Because I bet Nate Oates reacts to that too. I bet he throws his hands up and he's like, you can't, you know what I mean? Like, and then he complains then to Sankey. And that's the thing to me is Sankey, the way that then Sankey reacts in a letter, in a public, public, I don't even remember what the word, reprimand, a public reprimand. He was more reprimanded by the people of Twitter than he was by Greg Sankey.
It always just makes me think like Nate Oates should have tweeted that George Costanza, had anybody told me not to do that? Then I would, should I not have done that? I was unclear. I credit Aiden Shaw for not doing it, but I'm not going to lie. I wanted him to 100% go at Nate Oates. Like I wanted him to charge Nate Oates after that. I wanted to see that. That would have been cool.
Do you think that Dennis should have done something? That was kind of my thing.
It is my understanding that from the Missouri bench, they did not know that Nate Oates had made contact with him. Now, I asked Dennis that after the game, and he just didn't answer. And Tucker, you've been in these press conferences. You know, sometimes you're like, hey, coach, here's a lifeline. I'm gonna toss you this. I'm setting you up.
Yep.
I know you didn't see this. Do you want to say you didn't see it? And he didn't say he didn't see it. And so I understand Missouri fans going, what's he doing? Because they don't have that information. And if Dennis isn't going to say it, you can't say it for him. It was my understanding they didn't actually know that contact had been made at that time, which would explain a little bit. But look, I want to see the thing that eventually does get Dennis Gates, you guys remember the Frank Haith, Mike Anderson thing at Mizzou Arena, right?
Oh, yeah.
The greatest moment in Mizzou Arena history, as I like to call it. I want to see the thing that makes Dennis Gates do that, other than, Tamar Bates talking trash to the Alabama bench, which got Dennis going.
Yeah, just show like a shred of emotion maybe sometimes. That would be pretty sick. I was looking up Gates' quote after the game because, as you mentioned in the press conference, you asked him, like, hey, about that. He did say Nate apologized after the game, but I posed the question, if that was players in a huddle with a hand on an opponent, what would take place? It would be an automatic technical foul, right? I thought I saw two referees in the huddle. It wasn't a technical foul, but that's the question I would pose. If it was players making hand contact, what would take place? Obviously, something we had brought up, and then Maggie, you mentioned the literary hand slap that Greg Sankey issued after the game to Nate Oates, which it is a weird situation. There's no direct bylaw about it either. I think in the SEC bylaws of hey, opposing coaches don't push other players.
Do we need a bylaw? Don't put your hands on the other players?
Right. And I even think it would be kind of weird even if I saw Dennis Gates do that to Aiden Shaw, I'd be like, oh, that was a little aggressive. If I saw something like that from the same coach to the same player. I don't know. It was a very weird situation that didn't feel right. That's the thing is it just didn't feel like it should be allowed.
Also, you said, Dennis said Nate Oates apologized after the game. I believe he apologized to Dennis and Aiden. Whatever he said in the press conference was not an apology.
Correct.
He called it an unfortunate incident. No, unfortunate. Those are accidents.
Wrong place, wrong time, Gabe.
Run into another car. That is an accident and an unfortunate incident. If you get hammered and drive your car down the street and run over a mailbox, that's not an unfortunate incident. That's you being an idiot. But yeah, the wrong place, wrong time jokes are going to write themselves forever, by the way.
100%. I have his quote here. I have all the respect in the world for the job Gates has done as an assistant and a head coach. No disrespect to him or his program. Correct. I apologize to both Gates and Aiden Shaw. Aiden seemed like a great kid. It's an unfortunate situation, but I apologize to both of them.
It's unfortunate that I pushed him. Yes.
All you do in those situations is set kids up to be called things that they shouldn't be called, and like the things, I mean, obviously Twitter's gonna Twitter and things like that, but it wasn't fair, the things that I saw, like Aiden being called and things like that. That's all Nate Oates did in that situation, putting himself in that situation, and you just should never do it. Just
It
coaches,
wasn't
don't do that.
right. It wasn't like a violent shove or anything like that, right? But he's a coach, man. That he doesn't get to do that.
Yeah.
But the only coach that, I mean, like if Jerry Stackhouse does that, all right. If I'm a player, I'm like, I'm out. I'm go back to my bench coach. You win. Other than that, I don't really think there are SEC coaches that are going to intimidate college basketball players, right?
Bruce Pearl scares me a little bit. I don't know why.
Yeah, he's versus.
He might be a little bit of a teddy bear, but I don't think, maybe he reminds me of my dad a little bit, who's like more like a teddy bear, but they're still like coaches, so I feel like on the court they're intimidating. But
I want to give a hat tip to Jeff Borzello, who I'm reading this ESPN article from, because I think it's funny. He put a sentence in here: there were no further incidents in Alabama's win after Oates jogged toward the half-court line for the final buzzer of Gates' handshake. And I think that's funny just to add that in there.
Yeah,
there are no further incidents.
Nate wasted no time getting to midcourt after that game. He was sure he was hurrying up to do that handshake. But also, like, I think it is fair that I've seen a lot of, well, maybe if the basketball team won any games, you would be talking about the basketball or not all those fights with coaches. I mean, that's also a fair criticism.
Yeah,
We might be
fair.
It is fair.
But news is news, okay?
Yes.
But look, this is way more interesting to talk about than, I don't know, would they lose by 18 or something in that game?
9-3. Yes. Good job.
What a pull. What a pull from the dome right there. Yeah, way better than to talk about whatever that game was. As Gabe mentioned, it's Groundhog Day. We keep watching the same game over and over, and we'll talk about a game that happened again, in the Florida game. But first, got to take a break, got to pay some bills, got to thank the folks at HomeField Apparel. I'm rocking the gold Mizzou Raw shirt, one of my favorite ones to wear from the HomeField collection. You can go check them out. Over 150 schools. I think they just added, gosh, I can't remember. Nevada, yes. They've got a really cool surfing Wolfpack shirt. Like, that is a wild shirt. Go check that out if you want to support another school, or if you have a friend who's a Nevada Wolfpack friend, go get them a shirt, and you can use code KCSN15 for 15% off your first order. Go check them out there. We're going to take a break. On the other side, we're going to talk about Missouri basketball versus Florida and what they've got coming up next, so stick tuned.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL playoffs, is bringing you an offer that'll make the playoffs electrifying. New customers can bet just $5 on any game and get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Looking at the Chiefs-Ravens line right now, Chiefs are dogs, 3.5 points going on the road. You can get plus money as well, so you can download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code KCSN to get in on that action. New customers can bet $5 to get $200 instantly in bonus bets. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook with code KCSN. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus, age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See dkng.com/football for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. All right, let's get into Missouri versus Florida. They scored 36 points in this game. Not enough to supplant the Florida Gators as they played in some pretty sick uniforms. Maggie, let's talk about this without Gabe, because I know Gabe doesn't care about this. Those were pretty sick.
Yeah. Florida, they're an interesting team. They're not also very good either. They're just long, way longer than we are. I mean, they're way more athletic than we are. We were talking about this in one of my group chats. We just have guys that kept driving to the lane, and they get surprised every time they get blocked. Like every single time by these dudes that are just like all 6'10". I don't know. Nick Honor like gets surprised every time he got blocked. I don't know. Tamar couldn't do wrong in this game, and for some reason, other people just kept shooting. I'm like, just keep giving the ball to Tamar. At one point, Tamar like threw up a 3-pointer. It was the only 3-pointer he actually made in the entire game. But he like threw it up and it was a terrible shot. Then it went in the basket. And he even like laughed or like shrugged the fact that he even made the shot. And I was like, why is anybody else even shooting the ball at this point? Like nobody else should even be shooting the ball in this game. Just give the ball to Tamar because he's the only one that's making anything. And everybody else is getting the ball stolen or getting it blocked or just missing wide open shots. It was just honestly, it was really hard to watch the entire game. That's why I was holding back and forth the whole time.
Tucker, I will give you though, watching on mute, like if they're going to wear uniforms, those are far better than any other uniforms they wear.
Oh yeah,
those are the Doug Smith, Lee Howard, Melvin Booker uniforms, and probably be cooler if they had Doug Smith, Lee Howard, and Melvin Booker playing in them.
Yeah,
not today. I mean, I haven't seen Coward lately. I've seen Melvin and Doug lately, and like no offense, but they're older than me. I don't know that they could go out there and operate effectively for 40 minutes in a college basketball game today.
They might have some depth though.
They were good outfits.
Do you think do you think we're just going to wear them like once a year? Or can they replace the really bad yellow ones that we keep wearing in the bragging rights game? I hate them.
I assume they can't permanently replace them. I don't know what the rules are, if there are any rules or not.
I think those yellow ones are like bad luck or something.
They look bad.
Well, I mean, what uniforms have not been bad luck here?
I mean, maybe we get rid of all.
Where are the good luck uniforms?
Maybe we get rid of all of them, Gabe. I know you don't like talking about uniforms, but maybe we get rid of all of them.
Maybe
Let's bring back the
gray and blue.
Let's bring back the ones from like 2008 and 9 and see if it helps.
The old gold ones.
Those were hideous looking, but that was not even gold. It was like greenish. They were terrible.
Okay, let's bring back the ones we wore when like Alex Oriaki. Those were legit.
I've heard
the tiger stripes on the back. Yeah, those were good. And
about like the throwback like Missouri font on the front. They did the white ones last year. I personally like the gold ones better. I think the gold ones look cooler than the white ones. But I do agree with you, Maggie. They should just like flip out the whole set. Like they should wear the white ones and these gold ones, and then I guess you'll have to make a black one to make it all cohesive and make it look a little bit cooler. Because you know what's better? Like you gotta switch some of the momentum. You gotta switch some of the juju. So flip it up, switch it up.
As long as we're on uniforms, can we talk about this is my crusade. I think that all coaches in all sports should have to wear the uniform the way baseball managers do.
Yes.
Like I want basketball coaches in the actual uniform coaching the game. I want
you imagine
there in the throwback, or like he can wear a t-shirt, he can wear whatever he wants under it, but he has to wear like an actual jersey and pick a number, and just like the baseball coaches do, or like I want to see Eli Drinkwitz in the jersey and football pants during.
Yeah, but could you imagine wrestling coaches like wearing it, or like swim coaches, awesome. Like the swim team coaches wearing like Speedos like on the
support all of it.
Yeah,
that would be fantastic. I want to see all of those things.
I think the best one is the football coach if he's just like fully padded up, wearing the helmet and everything. Just like look over and Eli Drinkwitz ready to take a snap at any moment. That would be a great one. But no, I agree. I think that they should do that. And I think it's funny that baseball is the only sport that does that. And I know it was because of like back in the day, like some managers like actually had to play. Like that's just kind of how it was. And then
could you have seen though, like late stage Bill Snyder on the sidelines wearing the purple uniform, the Power Cat helmet. Would have been incredible. Like, I would have watched every K-State game just for the cutaways.
I feel like he was late stage from like 1970.
Early stage.
I don't remember anything but late stage.
Or like 1997, Norm Stewart over there, just a Missouri uniform. Would have been awesome.
It would be funny too, like if they aired them right. Like this is what I used to wear when I played, so they were like era based of like.
So Norm had to wear like the 1954 Missouri jersey,
right. So he had to wear those. I'm looking at Alex Oriaki is not a name that I had thought of in years, but now I can't stop looking at his just Google images. Those uniforms, it seems like every time Mizzou tries to do a gold uniform, it just like doesn't turn out very well. I don't know if it's like when you mix the sweat with like the yellow that they use, it turns into a really weird color. But like they've, I don't know if they've successfully done, probably outside of the one I just did, a yellow jersey, like a full-on yellow, very well.
Yeah, probably not. But the back of those jerseys are legit. Do you see them with the tiger stripes on them? Like those are like my favorite ones. But the black and the white, you're probably right about the gold.
It probably is just something that when it gets wet, it looks weird. But yeah, that's uniform talk.
Alex Oriaki also would be a good addition to this team.
You know
I think basically anybody right now that has played on in Mizzou in the past. I mean, there might be some walk-ons.
Junior, come on down. Doing all right in the NBA.
Jarrett Sutton, if you're listening.
Look, Jarrett, let me check my text. They're going to be having a show here come out. So if you really want the actual X's and O's of this basketball, if you're like, wow, these guys don't talk a lot about basketball, I've got a show for you on this piece with Jarrett Sutton. God bless.
If you really want the X's and O's of this basketball season, frankly, we need to talk. Like, why is what I want to know.
I got a box score for you. It's called the ESPN Score Center app.
Personally, I would much rather talk about why Dennis Gates doesn't wear a uniform than the X's and O's. That's just me. I don't know. Maybe I'm misreading the room here.
Sometimes, like when, and I say this a lot in football, whenever I say a box score can't tell you the whole story, and I feel like there's like box score warriors. I feel like you can kind of look at the box score of these basketball games and it tells you the full story of what kind of happened. It'll tell you that the game was really, really close until about 9 minutes. And then we stopped making a bunch of baskets and they started making a lot of baskets.
Yeah, looking at the play-by-play is very telling because you can always find hey, there's a Missouri basket. Here's the next one. I don't see it. There's a lot of things happening here.
Yeah. That's, I took some, I was trying to see where it had the, I also saw in the Florida game, we had 4 offensive rebounds.
Florida, I think, had more.
Yeah, just a couple.
That shit.
They just had a few more than that. But yeah, it was a 6-point game with 8 minutes and 30 seconds left, and we lost by 13. So yeah, it's just the same thing. Like you said, if you look by the play-by-play, that happened in almost every game except the South Carolina game where we know that we lost. We were winning the entire game except overtime.
But Tamar Bates, I mean, he scored something like 54% of their points or 56. I don't know. I had the number exactly on Saturday. I wasn't going to go back through like box scores and stuff to figure out if that, because I'm not going to spend a lot of time on a 13-point loss to Florida that made them 8-10 on the season. But I would imagine that maybe there's never been a Missouri player that scored a higher percentage of points since, one guy scored 8 points in the 11-6 win over Iowa pre-flight in 1907, right? But that we're not counting that.
53 is the total, 53%, 53.7%.
Yeah, because I mean, I know like Peeler scored 44. Thomas Gardner had a 43-point game, but I would be willing to bet that Missouri scored more than 85 or 86 in those games because there were other guys who were actually making shots, whereas there were really not other guys making shots in this game.
Well, and that's the thing. If guys like Sean East and Noah, who has been kind of up and down this season, but before the Alabama game, was scoring 13 to, 23 points a game for 7 or so games in a row. If those guys are scoring the amount of points that they've been scoring all season, we win these games. Because Tamar's kind of coming into his own. It's been kind of cool watching how he's developed through the season. If they do what they have been doing, these are wins for Mizzou. So it's kind of crazy to see them not all come together at the same time the way you kind of see other teams do, because like every player that started for Florida scored in double figures. And you see this kind of pattern happen with other teams where you have at least 3 or 4 players scoring in double figures or having double doubles or something, but you don't see that happen for Mizzou. Maybe you'll see like 2 players have double figures or something, but like on a game like the other day where it was only Tamar, or a lot of games you'll see just Shawnice like kind of show out. I don't know why it's kind of, you can't get multiple players like really rolling on the same night.
Said, I don't know either.
Agree.
But Tamar basically, his 36 points were the most in a regulation game and the most against a conference opponent since 2006, when Thomas Gardner scored 40 against Kansas. So it's been a minute.
That was a fun night.
Since they had a guy score as many points as they did. But Maggie, as you were mentioning, looking at this box score, Tamar Bates, 36 points, next highest score for Mizzou, Nick Honor with 10. So like they had 2 guys in double figures. That's not usually going to get it done.
And we had 7 points on the bench. I believe 7 points from the bench.
Yep. It's usually not.
And I know a lot of people were saying, we need more minutes from the freshmen, but I feel like in the Alabama game and the Florida game, we got more minutes from the freshmen. I was looking at one point, I believe, was it Jordan Butler played 6 minutes, and then that 6 minutes he had 0 points and 3 personal fouls. And like,
every day at the office.
I mean, I know we're just trying to kind of add depth a little bit.
I understand people wanted to see more of him though, because like
I do too.
He's not a part of the future. Like he can't be.
Yeah,
Jesus Carolero, even if he's back, not really like a part of the future. So I understand people wanting to see more of them. I don't know that it would make them any better, but it's not going to make them. I mean, what are they going to do? Lose? Well, that's what they've lost. What I think 8 out of 9 now. So
I want to see more of the freshmen too. I just don't know how much more time you can take away, like add them in, because I would say you can give more time to Trent Pierce, but I don't know how much more time you can give to the other 2 that you're not giving them now. Like, because I feel like they've added more time in.
I can tell you how many you can give Jordan Butler. Add up how many Connor Vanover played with, how many more Majok played, and that's how many more you can give Jordan Butler.
Actually,
whatever that number is.
I actually don't know how many minutes Connor Vanover played in that game.
I'm going to guess.
Yeah, that pull. I don't think.
I guess it's between 18 and 20 between the 2.
Oh, really? Yeah, I'm not sure. I can pull it up real quick though. In the Alabama game, Vanover played 9 minutes.
Right. And then
Florida he
played in the first half.
And in the in the Florida game, Vanover played 12 minutes and Majok played 1.
There you go. So there's 13 minutes.
Okay. Okay. Then you can put them in those.
There it is.
But I mean, ultimately, this is just about getting it next year at this point. I mean, not for them, but for the fans of this. We're gonna have to have like pre-show meetings to figure out what we're going to talk about on future podcasts. Because spending 35 minutes talking about Missouri basketball is
it's not gonna work.
Not good for anybody, guys.
No. They got 2 games coming up tomorrow on Tuesday or wherever you're listening to this podcast. I forget that you can listen to these podcasts 5 years from now, and it will end.
That seems like it would be awful to go back and listen to this one in time.
This one specifically 5 years from now. They play Texas A&M at Texas A&M. Texas A&M not particularly good. They're towards the bottom. It looks like that they are just 2 places ahead of Missouri in the SEC standings, and that they also
but they were predicted to be good. They have the preseason conference player of the year.
Yes.
And they just beat Kentucky.
So they got things going their way. That's what you're telling. They've got some stuff going their way. And then they go to South Carolina on Saturday. That, Gabe, you get your wish. Noon tip-off against the Gamecocks. And that is their week. Real quick before we end the show, do they get a win this week, Gabe?
I thought they were going to beat Florida before the game. Sure, why not? They go win at South Carolina. I don't really know why, but sure.
What, Maggie?
I mean, I think South Carolina's due for a loss. I mean, 15-3 is. I'm not saying that South Carolina is bad, but I don't think that they're 15-3 good. Because Mizzou's not good, and they led them for that entire game. I think South Carolina's due for a bad day. So maybe we'll give it to them.
Look, at noon game, we get to test our strategy of maybe they just need to play a little earlier. They play a little earlier, and they
a little natural light on things. Yeah,
get some natural light. Maybe
it will be 1 o'clock their time, by the way.
That's true. But I only use things in God's time zone. The Central Time Zone is the only time zone I go off of. But that's gonna do it for this week's episode of Mizzou That's Who. We'll be back next week to talk about more Mizzou athletics. Look, wrestling's doing well. Gymnastics doing really well. There's other sports doing good things at Missouri Athletics, and hopefully, fingers crossed next time. We've been saying this for the last 2 weeks. Fingers crossed that we have a defensive coordinator that we can talk about, or football does something that we can talk about there.
Right.
I don't even... Said a high school kid, I'll talk 15 minutes on it. I don't care at this point. But we got to get through it. We appreciate you guys hanging through with us. Make sure to be a friend. Tell a friend, as Pat McAfee says, about the Mizzou That's Who podcast. Give us a 5-star rating and review, like and subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps us out. So for Gabe DeArmond and Maggie Johnson, I'm Tucker Franklin. We will catch you guys next week.